Why was Horus scared of the Ultramarines in the Horus heresy, and especially at their near arrival during the siege of Terra? Here are 8 reasons why, explained in brief. Let's get to it. Reason number 1. The traitor armies besieging the homeworld weren't the mighty legions they once were. Horus was already losing a lot of men and material in the siege of Terra. He had lost his best warriors, his veterans, and a large portion of his force, including his Space Marine Legion. The sons of Horus would have numbered around a few tens of thousands at the latter stages of the siege of Terra. Then there are the other legions as well. They have also lost quite a lot of Space Marines in prior battles with high casualty rates. For example, there have been tens of thousands of lost Astartes from their ranks in just a few engagements like the Battle of Sotha, where the Night Lords lost 20,000. In the Battle of Fal, the Iron Warriors suffered 10,000 casualties. The Thramas Crusade costed the Night Lords a majority of their remaining legion. The Shadow Crusade, where the Word Bearers lost 50,000 in addition to the 50,000 lost in Kalt, as well as the World Eaters losing tens of thousands in the same crusade. The Battle of Prospero saw the Thousand Sons lose 80,000 Astartes, and there were many more engagements in the Horus heresy. Now they were losing more in the siege of the homeworld of humanity than they were before it. The Imperial Fists, the Blood Angels, and the White Scars were at the helm of the galaxy's most well-defended planet. This wasn't just any backwater world, this is homeworld. Reason number 2. Due to the ongoing war, the traitors have lost many worlds which were their main sources of men and material, and the supply routes were also stretched quite thin. With these factors, their recruitment rate for fresh Astartes was slowed down. The numbers of the traitor legions were in no way close to their pre-heresy strength. The source of their new recruits were also being cut off or had been destroyed entirely in the war. That was a big problem for them. They needed these to revitalize their numbers. So Nuceria for Angron had become a demon world. Chthoniya for Horus was under siege. Olympia was decimated by Perdurabo himself. The planet of Barbarus of Mortarion was subjected to exterminatus by the Dark Angels. Prospero of Magnus was the first to be burned. Cultures of Lorgar had collapsed during the Bitter War campaign. Chemos of Fulgrim had also been destroyed by the Dark Angels, and Nostrum of Conrad Curse was already in ruins due to the actions of their own Primarch, the Night Haunter. Thus, by the final year of the heresy, the 9 traitor legions would have been standing on their last legs, throwing everything they have in a do-or-die scenario, which was the Siege of Terra, and therefore the arrival of the Ultramarines plus the other legions would absolutely spell doom. They would be severely outnumbered, and that is suicide for an attacking force to be smaller than a defending one. Reason number 3. Horus was also losing his command structure and all of his strategies. By the end stages of the Siege of Terra, Perdurabo has left the war zone due to lack of order and the presence of a fuckload of demons, which is ironic since he was fighting on the side of chaos. Fulgrim and the Emperor's children always played a little part in the siege of the palace. Instead, they plundered Terra in all the various orgical ways the Slaneshi servants would have, instead of contributing to the war effort. Lorgar had already been exiled by Horus for trying to supplant him as the chosen of the Chaos Gods. Mortarion was banished to the warp by Jagatai Khan. Alpharis was already dead by this time, killed by Dawn on the Battle of Pluto. Conrad Curse was lost in space at this time. He was captured by the Lion and was about to be executed if not for the grace of the angel Sanguinius, who took him into custody and then later jettisoned him into space in a coffin-like pod. Magnus, with his severely diminished Thousand Sons, was tied up waging a battle in the Webway, where he was also battling against Vulcan, the Custodes, and the Imperial forces there. Angron, well, was doing as much as he can besides being in a frenzied demonic state that saw only bloodshed with no respect to tactics or strategies. Thus, by the end, Horus was actually the only Primarch actually fully invested in the Siege of Terra. He would thus not be able to outthink Gilman in this state of affairs, especially with the kind of strategic mind that Rebuti has and the pressure of his arrival would have on Horus. Reason number 4. Now the Ultramarines are the biggest legion with a pre-heresy number of 250,000, which was twice or even nearly thrice as big as the smallest ones. The Dark Angels were also pretty huge as well. They were the second biggest. The Men in Blue also had the impressive logistical support and material from the 500 worlds of Ultramar as well as many other planets in Ultima Segmentum. They might have lost 120,000 Space Marines to the atrocity of Calth and to the Shadow Crusade, but they were also able to come back to full strength in a relatively short amount of time, notably before the end of the heresy. The reason for this is due to the realm of Ultramar being sort of a mini empire of the Ultramarines, and they can gather recruits or inductee in no time from a massive population that populated these worlds. They also have the most stable gene seeds, plus a well-organized stock due to Gilman's logistical policies. They were the purest alongside those of the Dark Angels, and thus can be used to be implanted on recruits and rebolster their numbers only after a short amount of time. Thus, before the end of the Horus Heresy, 7 years after the massacre at Calth, the boys in blue were already near or in full strength again. This means at the least a legion of more than 200,000 men en route which are fresh and well armed to the teeth. Reason number 5. The relief force wasn't just the Ultramarines, they were also the Dark Angels and the Shattered Legions. As Sanguinius stated during the siege, Rubudi is emptying Ultima Segmentum of men and material to come to Terra's defense. This isn't just the realm of Ultramar, but the Ultima Segmentum as a whole, which is home to the largest number of worlds in the Imperium, as it is the largest of the segmentae of the galaxy in terms of its sheer size and spatial volume. This means half a galaxy worth of available forces converging on Terra against the exhausted traitor legions who have been attacking the most well-defended bastion of humanity in the galaxy. Along with the hundreds of thousands of Astartes, there would be the legions of Titans, entire night houses, tens or even hundreds of thousands of ships in supermassive fleets carrying billions of soldiers ready to die for the Imperium at the flick of a finger. No wonder Horus was forced to move on Terra before the Ultramarines could rally the Imperium, and the reason why Horus lowered down the shields of his flagship was to lure the Emperor for the fateful battle on the Invincible Reason before Rubudi and the others can arrive. Reason number 6. Rubudi himself. So even though Rubudi Gilman might not have been the best in one-on-one combat, he was still arguably one of the most dangerous Primarchs in other aspects. His real power lay in his insane organizational and logistical skills, so just having him on a battlefield was enough to doom his enemies. He could process information faster than a cogitator, and he had his amazing ability to factor even the tiniest details into his plans. Horus understood from the beginning that if they were going to beat Gilman, it had to be fast and by total surprise, or they'd have no chance at all. When Lorgar finally showed his hand at Calth, it was a devastating betrayal. He took over the planet's defense systems, turned them against the Ultramarines, wiping out a huge chunk of their forces and ships. But even with that, the Loyalists still managed to win. Gilman's organizational genius played a big part. He could quickly analyze what was happening, come up with last-minute plans, and completely turn the situation around. At one point in time, he even acted as a stand-in for a ship's computer when it went down, figuring out what happened and locating the World Eater's base just by piecing together random bits of information from people looking out the windows. His brain was on another level. When Horus got word that Gilman and his legion were getting close to Terra, he panicked, and that's one of the reasons why he tried to lure the Emperor to his ship for a final confrontation. Reason number 7. Along with Rubudi and the Ultramarines were the Dark Angels trailing behind, and they were tagging along with the remnants of the Raven Guard, the Salamanders, the Iron Hands, and the Space Wolves. But most of all, along with them came the Lion, who would be feared by Horus for different reasons to Gilman. The Lion's gift for warfare was well known by his brothers during the Great Crusade, and as the firstborn he holds a certain prestige. He swiftly rose up the ranks for battles and compliance campaigns won, and even surpassed those of Horus during the Great Crusade, only dropping down the ranks after his legion suffered heavy casualties during the Rangdan genocides, which was due to them being the only legion actually able to outthink and outclass the deadly alien species, yet still getting killed by the tens of thousands. He was also known as one of the best duelists, maybe even at par with Sanguinius. He could fight subconsciously and attack without thinking about them, like an ultra instinct level, and he could even change strikes mid-swing, catching even Conrad Kurz with foresight of God. Along with his legion and his skill, he also possessed powerful Dark Age of technology weapons of mass destruction, which included the dreaded Exindio class automata, which are enslaved men of iron. The Emperor, for whatever reason, trusted the Lion more than any other Primarch with these weapons. Maybe he knew in his heart that the Lion, the firstborn, was the only one that would never betray him in any circumstance. Thus Horus feared both the size and logistical superiority of Gilman and his Ultramarines, as well as Ultima Segmentum as a whole, and he also feared the Lion's gift for warfare. Both of them together would be the hammer and the anvil that would break down the traitor forces in an instant. And the final reason here is that with the arrival of the relief force, the Retribution Armada or army or whatever it is still freaking huge. The arrival of this would crush the traitor force in the middle. For the entirety of the siege, Horus and his forces were waging essentially a one-front war. The traitors were besieging the most well-defended and the most well-armed planet in the galaxy, defended by 3 legions, countless solar auxilia, Imperial Army, Custodes, PDFs, Mechanicum and more. The siege of Terra wasn't going as easy as one might think. Now if the huge relief force of probably tens or hundreds of thousands of ships and billions of soldiers plus 2 full-size legions and 4 small ones were coming from the opposite side, the siege would turn into a 2-front conflict. This would be double penetration for Horus. This would have turned into a drop-side massacre but on a massive scale. This pincer movement would automatically spell doom for the entire attacking force, and Horus would have to either forced to fight alone or flee. Therefore this leads us to what he did. The only thing he was able to do, to lure the Emperor into a trap or into a battle by taking down his shields of his flagship, and then we all know what happened next. So those are the many reasons why Horus feared the Ultramarines coming to the siege of Terra, because with them came other legions and countless billions of soldiers of the Loyalist Imperium. Anyway, if you like this video, then watch this other one too. And if you want to browse for other sci-fi content, as well as Warhammer of course, check out our channel. So subscribe and like for support. And while you're at it, bang on that bell icon for notifications on new video uploads. Till the next time, take care, boys.